wanted to share the last of the 7 journals that I made in this collection, which is an open spine collection with leather straps. And I've already uploaded the first 3 and did a video on that. So if you haven't seen those and you're interested, you can look on my channel. It's a previous video. And then I finally got the 4 finished. Actually, they've been finished a while. I just haven't had the energy to get these filmed and uploaded. And so I'm doing it now. So they're made identical basically as far as the construction as the first 3. Like I said, this is the last 4. I did a whole series of 7 with this style, and I plan on doing more because I love it so much. These, I have 2 green, slightly different covers, and then a blue and a red. And these are all Reader's Digest books that I altered. So I didn't change the actual cover part. I just changed the edges where I covered the edges where I had removed the original binding. And but this is the original print, because I find old Reader's Digest books really charming, super charming. Okay, so I'm going to go through these as quickly as I can because I just want to give you an overview. There'll be pictures on the Etsy listing, and I'll have a link to the Etsy listing in the description box too. So if you want to go see them, you can click there and you can actually see the listing. Okay, so let's start with the green ones. I'll just show you the difference between them since they're both green. So green and cream basically, and then this is a darker green and a lighter green with cream colored accents. I use the same leather on both of these. I just did a different style of straps. I use rivets on both of them, but I use different rivets, as you can see. I use the same vintage button. This is post right after World War II. This is the part of Germany that was occupied by the US. I did some research because it was labeled. The data, oh gosh. The information that was on the button card led me to do some research. And so after World War II, we stayed there for a while, and the Americans, and and this was the part of Germany that was occupied by the Americans for a little while. And these are actual crystal, real crystal. They're not plastic. They're actually crystal. They're beautiful. Anyway, I use the same one on both. And the other differences between the two is I used an unbleached muslin here on the edges, wider straps, linen to sew in the signatures. I used, both of them have the vintage seam binding. And then this is a textile bead that I love to make. I make them quite a bit. I just try to keep a stash of them because I love to make them out of all my bits and bobs. And so they're completely hand stitched, no glue. They're embroidered, and I use all different kinds of stuff. So silk thread, cotton thread. Same with fabrics. I have wool, silk, and cotton depending on each textile bead's a little bit different. This one is I think it's cotton base, and then I have some, do I have some silk thread in there? Yes, I have silk thread in there. I had to look. And then a glass bead on the bottom, and then a wooden bead that has some texture. I love these wooden beads. I hope I can find more of those sometime soon. They have a neat texture on them. They're not like plain wooden beads. They're a little different. And then just to show you the difference between the two, this is handmade paper, and then cotton rickrack. It's vintage on here. I love this handmade paper. It's basically gone. I'm kind of sad. I need to find more. I did not make this one, so I need to find more like that. And this is, like I said, vintage, so it is 100% cotton rickrack. I love that stuff. Oh man, I think I said that already, right? Same linen thread that I sewed them in with. And then the charm is, I'm not in focus, am I? Oops. Same or similar glass bead on the bottom, another textile bead that I made. This one has some silk fabric attached into little, I don't know what you call those. I guess they look almost like flowers, don't they, or something. And it's on a base of cotton linen fabric, I believe, and then a wooden bead on top. Okay, so I'll show you a flip through of this one first. So this is the green and brown one, basically. I used a lot of vintage, I'm gonna try to zoom in here so you can see better. Postage stamps. Some of them aren't very vintage. Most of them are old. They've been canceled, so they're from old letters, postcards, and things like that. And more of that handmade paper. This is vintage netting used in lace making. And I put some little bits and bobs in there for you to journal with, or to create some decoration to your pages. Most of the pages don't have a lot of decoration. The most that I did were tab things like this, because I wanted it to be I wanted you to be able to put your own style and signature on it, so to speak. Little tuck spot with some more goodies. This is actually a piece of vintage ephemera bingo game thing. It's paper, it's not cardstock though. Super cute. Some more vintage lace. And the papers that I included, I love nice papers, so I try to put as much in my journals as I can. This is some parchment paper. This is some vintage graph paper that's thick. It's very nice. It's a nice hand to it. That's a vintage price tag from a secretarial book, like from secretarial school. And then I made some pockets. There's pockets in all of them. That's just some pretty scrapbook paper. And then this is from an old receipt book, so I'm not sure how old it's from. And somebody used their embosser, like that you emboss a book with, you know, to in the library of, or whatever, I think is what that says. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know how old it is. It does say 19 something, and the paper and the aging on the paper looks pretty old, but I'm not sure how old it is. Another pocket with some ephemera. All of them have some wine bottle labels in there. It's a combination of ephemera and pretty papers. Another stamp. It's from a vintage electrical engineering book. Some more of that parchment pocket. This is from the American Geological, whatever, U.S. government. Old maps is that our government published in the 60s. And then I made a tab out of a school milk ticket. Do y'all remember those? I used to get milk tickets when I was in elementary school. We would have like the morning milk time. Did y'all do that? Like snack time? I remember filing to the cafeteria, getting my milk. And so this is some vintage fabrics and some silk here that I made a tab out of on this pocket. And there's some pretty paper in here and some scrapbook paper. This is Tim Holtz. I do have a few of his papers in here. The other ones I don't know where they came from, because most of mine I buy from resale shops and stuff. So I don't even know what collection they came from or who made them or anything, most of them. But these I do, because I did actually buy some Tim Holtz stuff because his stuff is awesome. Oh, and then there's the green stamps. Do y'all remember those too? I love using those, making tabs out of those. And then this is a piece of ephemera. I think it's what they originally, like in a game, you know, where they tell you your fortune. Like there'd be like a fortune teller robot person. Do you know what I'm talking about? I think that's what that's from, because it says, whom should you marry? And it gives all this information on there. And I'm not sure what the copyright is. It's copyright 19 something, but it doesn't, I can't read it, so I don't know. It's new. More handmade paper. That heart is handmade paper. Another vintage stamp. Some of them are international, like that one. That's a Dutch stamp, I think. I don't know. I'm not sure what that is, actually. It's not American, I know that. I do use a combination of old book pages and nice pages, and I try to always put pages in here that will take wet media really well, like this one, for example, will, if you want to. Most of them will. Here's some more pretty papers and a tag that are in this tuck spot. That's a 1-cent stamp. Another 1-cent stamp. Another 1-cent stamp. And this is some beautiful paper with stitching on it. It has little gold flecks. I love that paper. This is a vintage price tag. I'm not sure how old it is. It's from Hested Stores Company. I don't know how old it is, but I'm guessing it's at least from the 50s. More of that parchment paper. This is from a Spanish textbook. The other thing that you may notice as I turn the pages is this style of book lays really flat for the number of pages that are in it. It's really nice, and there's a lot of room here for expansion. So as you add pictures and more paper, it's going to handle it quite nicely. Here's some more pretty papers for you to use on your pages. A tab here. Oh, and that's a sticker, like a vintage inspired sticker. This is more of that yummy paper that I wish I could find more of, with some mini tassels on for the tab, and a fold out sheet here. Avocado dyed paper that's also an oversized sheet. Some really nice, beautiful green paper. It's really nice weight. It has a wonderful feel to it. So that'll be fun to use. And a little tuck spot with some more handmade paper in a wine label. More pretty papers. Another tab, more handmade paper. This handmade paper is just so fun to use, and you can easily glue to it. I've glued stuff, and it would be fun to use for whatever you want, like that for the base, because it has so much texture. And I like it, and I like the rough edges. I did that on purpose. I didn't want it to look perfect and perfectly straight. Another tuck spot with some more papers, a little extra handmade paper for you to make your own little whatevers with. Pocket out of one of those maps that I mentioned earlier. This is paper that you print checks on, and I used another vintage stamp for a tab there. Another pocket here, ready to fill up. And this one I put another piece of paper in that particular pocket. Another vintage stamp. And then the back has a pocket that's mirror image of the front pocket, front inside cover. And this one I included an old piece of money. It's 500 lire from Italy. So it just has a really nice, well, it's just beautiful, actually. You know, it's the art on money is always so pretty, I think. So you can use that in your mixed media or to decorate a page. I don't know, I just thought it was beautiful and I wanted to include it. Okay, so that's the green and brown one. Then the green one has the same thing as far as pockets on the inside cover and the back cover, and I've stuck some goodies in there to journal with or to decorate your pages with. And again, I use the stamps, vintage stamps on the pages. Ephemera, that same kind from the fortune telling machine, I think. And then this one I have envelopes like this, and I have them stuck down. Basically, they can close securely with Velcro. Yummy vellum, some cotton coffee dyed paper, some more of that handmade green paper. This is a belly band pocket, and I put another piece, another receipt from that same receipt book that's in the other journal, and some pretty paper. And some more of that handmade paper. And another price tag that I think is from the 50s, but I'm not sure. A wine bottle label. White Swan Park. I love tickets of all kinds, the vintage tickets especially. This is Japanese pattern paper. This is a map of a part of Germany. It's a vintage map too. More of that sewn paper, stitched paper with the gold flecks. It's really pretty. I love the vintage book pages. This has a really smooth, just has a nice feel. It's not super thick, but it's still strong enough for you to do whatever you want with it. Another vintage stamp. Another vintage stamp. Tuck spot with some handmade paper and some different kinds of papers along with this label, wine bottle label. This children's dictionary page is yummy as far as like how it feels. I love it. I use it a lot because I love the way it feels. Tuck spot with some pretty papers in there ready to use. Some lace and stamp. Another milk ticket. This one I included from Trinidad. Vintage money. Out of circulation, old. I'm not sure how old it is actually. I don't know. There might be a date on there that I'm not seeing, but fold out page. So we've got some oversized. I love pages that fold out, so I try to include those in all my journals because I love the freedom that it gives you in giving you some extra journaling space or for pictures. I don't know. I love them. Handmade paper there and some other doodad papers, stickers. I don't even know. I don't remember there. Some more tassel. Tassel tab. I did include stitching in all the journals. They all have a little bit of stitching. This is a nice cotton paper. Most of the paper that's plain like this is a cotton, either 100% cotton or a cotton blend paper, so it takes water media really well. This is a big tuck spot pocket thing, and I included some more papers and a little bit of ephemera there. Vintage postage stamp. More handmade paper. Map page. This is some painty paper. Some nice art paper there. Pocket. It's a map from Colorado in the 60s. Okay, and this actually is a fold out. I attached it with a paper clip so that way you can include it anywhere you want. But it's a fold out. And I would probably glue it in, or I don't know. Actually, I'm not sure what I would do because it would depend on what I'm going to put in here. So, yeah. So I just left it like this so you could include it wherever you want and put it wherever you want. And then here's the back pocket with some pretty papers tucked in there, ready to use. This is, I don't think I mentioned this. This is also vintage rickrack, so it's cotton rickrack. It's beautiful. It's just, it can't compare to new rickrack in my opinion. Vintage rickrack is just a nicer product. So pretty. Okay, so there are the two green ones. Now we'll move on to the other two. So the red has this vintage button with a faux pearl in the center. I just love it because it shows a lot of wear, and of course I don't know, but I imagine that whoever had this loved these buttons so much that they would take them off of whatever was worn out, you know, the cardigan or sweater or whatever, or coat, and would put it on another piece or something because they loved it so much, because it shows a lot of wear and rubbing, and I just love it. I love this button. This is leather, red leather, straps in the back with rivets. I used a red cotton thread to sew this in, and then the fabric is a stitched for texture. It's a stitched and reinforced actually, because I have it reinforced in the back with an interfacing, and I stitched on it. It's a unbleached muslin, but I wanted it to be more, have a little more texture than just plain. And then this is vintage seam binding, and then on this I just top knotted it and attached one of my textile beads. This one is actually wool, is the base, and then I embroidered on it. I added some cotton netting that is used for lace making, and then this is a vintage glass pearl button bead. It came from some vintage jewelry, so it's old. I'm thinking it's from the 40s, but I don't know that for sure, but it's very heavy. It's a very heavy glass bead. It's very nice, feels really nice in the hand, and then I love the way the textile bead feels together. And then with this button, I don't know, the button closure, I love it. In fact, this one I'm having a really hard time letting go of. I seriously thought about not even listing it, but I don't need another journal. I have several journals that I'm working in, and I can let go of a journal. So this is a reproduction image from Victorian days. So it's not an actual piece of ephemera, but that's authentic. It is just a reproduction image. And then I tucked some pretty papers in there for you to pretty up your pages or journal on the back or whatever you want to do. This is a belly band. I put a piece of file folder in here, which would be great to make like a little mini book album or something to go in your pages, whatever you want to do. You could just use it for journaling. There's just so many things you could do with it, but I stuck it in because I thought the color worked really well with the whole book, and I love putting books inside books. This is another one of those wine bottle labels. They make really great journaling cards. Vintage stamp here. This paper is super nice. It's same as the green paper that was in the other book. It's just red, but it has it has like a linen finish on it. Super nice. More of that Japanese pattern paper. Fold out pages. Tuck spot. I put a piece of scrapbooking paper there. Vintage stamp on that tab. Some vellum, printed vellum. Some nice Japanese type paper. I'm not sure where I got that, but it reminds, I don't know if it's Japanese or not, but it reminds me of some of the Japanese style handmade papers. This is vintage crochet, piece of vintage crochet there. And then I just made another envelope with some goodies in there with the Velcro closure. Price tag, vintage price tag. Some pockets with stuff in there for you to use to journal with or to make tags or just decorate your pages with. Avocado dyed paper. handmade paper with a vintage ticket. And then this is a vintage, this is authentic price tag. So this piece of ephemera really is ephemera, something that was intended to be thrown away. And I think that is from the 40s. It's really nice. It's a cardstock, so you could use it for lots of stuff, lots of different things. I tucked some more bits and pieces of pretty papers in there for you to use to make tags or decorate pages. This is from 1967, another piece of ephemera for a Adam's extract bake-off for teenagers to enter this baking contest. So super fun. There's another tab right there. Another piece of Victorian imagery, reproduction. And then I just stuck a little bit of stuff in there too, including another one of those bingo card things. That's vintage. And some pretty papers. Another belly band tuck spot, the piece of pretty paper to do whatever you want with. This is a recipe card, red velvet, from Adam's extract. This is also vintage. I think it's from the 60s as well. You know, they would have those hanging, which they still do, you know, at the grocery store. So to get you to buy their product and they'll put a recipe on it or something. This is some of my favorite handmade Japanese paper. Price tag. This is from electrical engineering textbook from the 50s, I think. And then this envelope has a few goodies in it too. This envelope's a little different. It's made out of the stone paper. Have you seen that? It's been around a long time. The first time I saw it, it was in journals, and they would say, like, their claim to fame was that it was waterproof. So like if your journal got soaked, as long as your ink was waterproof, you know, or if it was in pencil, I guess, it would be fine because you can't damage the paper. And so basically it's made out of stone dust, and I think they put some sort of polymers in it too, but it's completely tree-free. And you can find it in wrapping paper nowadays, and that's what this is. It's wrapping paper. And so it feels really interesting. It's different. It's fun. I like it. So that's what that's made out of. Avocado dyed paper. The other end of that Japanese paper I love. Just a little piece of pretty paper tucked there for you to use however you want to. I put a little piece of that vintage rickrack there. Another image from Victorian times. It's a reproduction with some of my favorite fabric in my stash. Some of that stitched fabric that you saw in the other journals with some gold flecks. Another vintage stamp with some cotton fabric, pretty paper, and then I also tucked a piece of money in this one. This is from Nigeria. Beautiful colors, just beautiful. Oops. It's just beautiful colors. You could just use it for all sorts of things. Vintage ticket on this one. The tuck spot. Wine bottle label and another Adam's extract recipe that was a hanging tag at the grocery store back in the, I think it was the 60s too. Envelope, same type of Velcro in there, closure with some pretty paper. Another tuck spot here. Stuck some paper in there. There's a vintage stamp. Another vintage stamp. Some more pretty paper to use for journaling or however you want to. Another storage spot. I stuck some more pretty stuff in there for you to use however you want, including a card that I've already prepped. It's gessoed, ready for you to decorate to your heart's content, using it as a journaling card or whatever you want to do. Another vintage ticket. And then this one I actually made a a little fold-out book that you can use for anything you want. It's just an accordion folded book. So it's really long. And it's ready for you to fill up with whatever. There's a vintage stamp there. And I just have it attached here for you to fill up and then do whatever you want with. You can even use it in another project if you want, but I thought it would go really well in here. Another place to maybe even put like a mini, if you take a weekend trip or something, that would be perfect to like document the weekend trip and then stick that in your journal for the year. I just think that's, I don't know, I just thought it was fun. I decided to include that. There's some little more paper there. Another Victorian reproduction image with some vintage fabric and vintage lace on there. Okay, so that's the red one that I'm kind of wanting to keep. Okay, all right, yeah. So, and then the last one is this blue one. This blue one is different in that construction is the same, but I included a lot more vintage ephemera. So when I call it vintage ephemera, ephemera to me is old paper that's designed for one use only. And while we can, you know, there's nothing wrong with reproductions. I use reproductions. I love them, especially stuff that I don't want to, you know, use up and it's out of copyright or something like from the 1800s, and then we scan it and use it over and over and over. I think that's just wise. But stuff that's in copyright or stuff that you know, that's actually in vintage, that's not that old but is outdated, is, you know, considered like one-time use, like magazines, for example, or newspapers. You know, that to me, that's all ephemera. And so in this one I have images from McCall's magazine from the 50s, and there's a lot of them in here. So that's the main difference, and that was the inspiration. The cover kind of inspired me for mid-century design, so I just kind of went with it. So on the cover is an old button from about the same era. It's this beautiful blue. I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up properly, but it's this beautiful blue color, like a midnight blue color. And then the seam binding is also vintage. It's blue. And then the metal bead there and here on the bottom are not vintage. Those are new. Those are modern. And in the center is a textile bead that I made. It has a lot of embroidered stitches on it, and it's a base of silk. That's a blue silk used as the base fabric. And then the leather I use is black. I use black thread to sew in the signatures. And then this is linen, the dark blue. It's an Irish linen. And it's, oh, I just love this fabric. This actually came from one of my very favorite shirts that I wore out, literally. I mean, it literally became threadbare. I wore it so much. So I've kept parts of it, and I use it on certain projects that I love so much, and that's what this came from. So this Irish linen is probably, I don't know, 25 years old, probably, guessing on how. I mean, I had that shirt forever, and yeah. And then this is vintage rickrack, black vintage rickrack on the edging right there. And then this first image on the inside pocket is from McCall's magazine for an ad for the Universal Coffee-matic. And then there's a pocket here that has some goodies that I won't pull out, but I filled it with some goodies in that pocket. Some vellum. And this pocket I made from fabric. This is a linen fabric. It's a coarser weave than the shirt, because this is actually from a upholstery sample book. So this is upholstery linen, some lace, and some unbleached muslin there, some pretty paper, scrapbook paper, a vintage flashcard. This is another one of those price tags that you saw in the other books that I think is from the 50s. This is a handmade paper, and I made a tag with some really coarse cheesecloth-like material. It's not cheesecloth, but it's a really coarse material. And an envelope ready to fill up. I put a few little things in there. Price tag, tab. And then this is an envelope made out of that same stone paper, and I did not insert this one. This one's just loose, ready for you to fill up. I put a few things in there, but you could attach it to a page if you want and like have a flip out, or you can just leave it paper clipped in, or you could tuck it into one of the pockets that are in here. This is from this isn't old, but it was probably 10 years ago or something, from a postcard, airmail. This is vintage paper. I'll be sad actually when this is gone, because I actually got the whole book that's filled with this paper. Super thick, it's super nice, and I love that it's blue and red. It's just really nice color. This is from a Spanish textbook, just a fabric tab there. And then here's some more of the ephemera that I was talking about. So this fab ad came out of the, I think it's 1957. I'll show you in a minute. Oh, no, right here, yeah. So Helene Curtis Lanolin Discovery Hairdressing, the new hairdressing in spray form. McCall's, April 1957. So all of these came from this particular magazine. And I backed it, all these, on some nice cotton paper. So they're ready, they're reinforced, and they're ready to use however you want, like journaling cards, or if you want to use them on another project. I also sealed them with a spray acrylic, because I discovered this particular magazine and some others similar to that, they tend to bleed. Some old magazines don't. These obviously were printed super cheaply because the paper is a little more fragile, but now it's sealed in acrylic, so it should be fine. But it took me a lot of time to get these all sealed and safe and ready for you to use in your journaling. So like I said, you can use this in another project or stick it in here for journaling cards. Here's a bra, Mamselle Brassieres. That's in Hollywood. So I made a little text spot for those. And then a journaling card here, ready to use however you want. This would be good for like pictures here and then journaling on the back of that. Another one of those little bingo pieces of paper. They're really super cute. This came out of, this did not come out of the McCalls. This is newer. This is from the 60s. And it was an ad for Bell. What were they called then? I don't have that in front of me because I cut it out of the ad, but it was a ad for the phone company. Some really nice thinner paper. This came out of an old photography book. Fold out pages from one of those old maps that I've used in basically all of this series of books, actually. A pocket, or is another journaling card, and some vellum, and some more pretty paper. Green stamps. This is vintage rickrack on that paper. And like I mentioned before, I'm keeping the pages super plain and simple because that gives you the freedom to do whatever you want to the pages. And I hope what is here gives you inspiration to keep, to then put your finishing touches. This is some vintage fabric from the 50s. I love that. I actually bought that originally for doll clothes, and I still have little bits and bobs of it, and I saber it. I don't use it a lot, except for little offcuts like this because I'm trying to save it. I think I have enough to make another doll dress, and I really want to because it's just wonderful. More vellum. This is a vintage image that's been reprinted. It's actually a, so this is a reprint. It's not real. Or authentic, I guess I should say. What is the word? So it's not vintage. It's just a copy of a vintage image from, I think it's from a deck of cards. And then this is from the McCall's magazine ad. And then I added some, this is some, I have a book on mid-century fabrics. And so this image came out of that. And I mounted on some nice heavy paper. So it's a tag for you to use any way you like. But it's nice cardstock, so you can, you know, it would hold images really nicely, and then you can journal. There's plenty of journaling space. Another envelope ready for you to fill up. Lux soap, another image from that McCall's magazine that's sealed and mounted, so it's ready for you to use however you want. Price tag. This is a tuck spot and some cotton lace edging there, and then I put some more ephemera in here with some vellum ready to use. I love these shoes. Aren't those shoes beautiful? I would not wear them. Personally, I would not wear them because I just don't wear heels anymore, but I just think they're beautiful shoes. Black suede, red, or Kelly green calf for $12.95. Oh, yeah. So again, this is from the 1957 McCall's magazine ad. This is an ad for Eaton's fine letter paper. Oh, and this one's from 1941, Good Housekeeping. Actually, I think, no, that one is from 1957. This one's 1941. I can tell by the papers. This is a different magazine. But this one also bled. You know, I had mentioned that some do and some don't. This one was also another one that does. So it's sealed with acrylic spray, so it's ready for you to use as you like without worrying about the ink bleeding all over the place. This is from an old school yearbook. Surf. Did you know Surf's been around that long? This is from the 1957 McCall's magazine. Surf detergent. And that's the other part of the ad. I separated them out, and so you have two pieces that you can use as tags or decoration or whatever you wanted. I wanted to leave these loose so that you could do with them as you please. Another envelope. This has some cards in here too that I've already prepped with gesso, so they're ready for you to do whatever you want and alter them, make journaling cards to go in your book. This is a little tuck spot from a piece of ephemera. And the little, well, I guess they still sell them, don't they? The little cups of ice cream. That's what this came from. Little cup of ice cream with the wooden spoon. That even just thinking about it makes my teeth kind of hurt. Oh, did you ever bite down on that spoon when you were little, the wooden one? Oh, okay. And then another ad. McCall's April 1957. You can see that on here. It's just a button with a little thread that I put on there. This is a wrapping paper sample. Fold out map. This is from a textbook on secretarial. I think it's a secretarial one, if I remember correctly. Another vintage book page. Map page. Another fold out. This is from a Texas map. File clerk. That's what it was. That's a file clerk book. That's what that's from. Not secretarial. This one's fold out too. Oh yeah, goes that way. Another green stamp. Pocket here, and here's another piece of ephemera from Blue Dutch. It's a Purex Corporation. Foams, bleaches, cleans, blue, white, clean. This is just some heavyweight paper, handmade paper on top of some more handmade paper actually. So it's really nice and sturdy for whatever. That would take media really well too, any kind of water media. Just some more cotton blend paper. More cotton blend paper. This is just a nice heavyweight paper. Another pocket. Here's blue white instant dissolving beads. New life for old nylons. Isn't she cute? She's super cute. And then the back is a pocket made out of a piece of out of the magazine McCall's 1957. It says right there, for luster net hairspray. And then I tucked a few more pieces of ephemera in here. Some Scotty's tissue. Aren't those plaid boxes cute? And Redbook. There's an ad for Redbook. And again, they're mounted on heavy paper, so they're ready for you to use however you want to. And sealed up. Okay, so that's the blue one. That's all 4 books, and I appreciate your time and watching these. I know took me a while to get through them, but I hope it gives you a good idea of what they're like. And yeah, that. So thanks so much for stopping by, and I will be back soon with a tutorial on a journal somebody asked me to do, and I will be happy to do it. So that's going to be my next video. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.